Fighter of the Year! Fighter of the Year. Who deserves it? Inoue, Terence, Crawford? There is no other two that belong in this running. Before I get into that, hit the thumbs up, sub, and notification bell. That way you get updated when I drop the newest content like this. With that being said, let's get into the video. So first and foremost, all other boxers throughout this year cannot compete with these two. These two by far are the best when you look at accomplishments and what they did and who they beat. We'll take Terence Crawford first because he only had one fight this year, which you could say Inoue by default wins because he had two. However, hold up, slow down, wait a minute. Who did Terence Crawford beat? Terence Crawford beat the most elite fighter at 147 welterweight, and that was in Errol Spence Jr. Not only did he beat him, he completely dominated him. It was one-sided. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even competitive in the way that he did it. And that's the thing about it. When you look at Errol Spence Jr., Errol Spence beat everybody that was to beat outside of Terence Crawford and Keith Thurman. And Keith Thurman, you could chop up to being, he was injured. He was gone for like 3 years. So really, he took himself off with all the injuries and being out the ring for so long. So Earl beat everybody that was to beat. There was nobody left but Terence Crawford. And Terence Crawford stopped that dude. That unstoppable force got stopped. Now you go over to the flip side. No, wait, let me go back real fast. Before we move on, by beating Errol Spence Jr., most importantly, I can't believe I was about to lead this out, he became undisputed for a second time, the first person ever to be a two-time undisputed champion in the four-belt era. So you had him accomplish that, all right? First one to do it. Now, hopping over to the other side, you have Inoue. Inoue had 2 fights this year. He moved up to his 4th weight class. Terence Crawford's only been in 3. This is Inoue's 4th. And he also became undisputed in 2 weight classes, just like Terence Crawford. Pause there. Who do you give more credit to? The guy who was the first one to do it, or the other guy who ties him at doing it? I'm the type of person where I give a little more credit to somebody who does it first than somebody who does it after you. While it is impressive in both, and just as impressive as in both of them, I still believe the guy who did it first has just a little nick over you. So I give Terence Crawford that over Inoue. Now, when you look at Inoue, he beat arguably the #1 fighter. In fact, I wouldn't say arguably. He was the #1 fighter in Fulton. Thing about Fulton is this. It was argued between him and MJ. Who was the best? Some people said MJ. Some people said Fulton. Fulton beat, I believe, 9 undefeated fighters, which is really unheard of throughout his career. Now, not all those undefeated fighters were great fighters, but at the time that he beat them, he wasn't a great fighter either. So you got to give him a lot of credit. I think Inoue was the 10th undefeated fighter that he got into the ring with. So you got to give the man a lot of credit, Fulton. He proved how good he was. But you had MJ, on the other hand, that many people believe could beat him. However, MJ never made it that far because he got stopped and beat in his tracks by Tapales, who Inoue goes on to fight after Fulton. Now, when I say he got stopped, I don't mean he got knocked out. I mean his win streak, his undefeated win streak, him being a champion, was stopped. It went to decision before people in the chat go crazy. Now, back to what I was saying. Stephen Fulton, right? Just like in the Errol Spence Jr. fight versus Terence Crawford, he was completely outclassed. It was one-sided. It was not even truly close, in my opinion. It wasn't. It was a very one-sided fight. Just like I said in the Terence Crawford-Errol Spence Jr. fight. So when you look at both performances, both guys fought undefeated fighters. Terence fought Spence when he was undefeated, and then you have Inoue who fought Fulton when Fulton was undefeated. The only difference here, I will say, is, in my opinion, Spence is a better win because he cleared out the division outside of Terence, whereas Fulton had yet to do that. He still needed to fight Tapales. And I'm saying Tapales because MJ lost to him. So we can't say that Fulton cleared out an entire division like Earl Spence Jr. But like that fight, it was just as one-sided, and Inoue looked amazing. Now, in his newest fight, he goes in there, most recently, just happened, fought Tapales. It was a hard fight, but he ended up stopping Tapales just like he ended up stopping Fulton. I believe it was in the 10th round. So both the guys that Inoue fought who are unified champions, meaning both of them had 2 belts before Inoue became undisputed with all 4 in his second weight class, just like Terence Crawford. He dominated them. He stopped them both. And the thing about Inoue is where you come back and that little tick, that little notch that I said that you put over Inoue, well, now Inoue has a notch over Terence Crawford because Terence Crawford, as I said earlier, 3 divisions, 2 division, undisputed. Inoue, 4 divisions, 2 division, undisputed. So when he became undisputed for the second time, this was in his 4th weight class. When Terence did it, it was in his 3rd weight class that he's been at for a while. Inoue just jumped up there and did it in 2 fights. Terence has been at welterweight for years now. So initially I said I believe Terence Crawford deserves it because in my opinion, Terence Crawford has been the #1 pound-for-pound fighter for years. I go back as far as Lomachenko when he was the Matrix, made fighters quit. You know, like whenever he did Nicholas Walters, Rigondeaux, etc. When he made all them quit, I was still saying I believe Terence Crawford was the #1 pound for pound. I have not moved. I have not budged. I have not had Canelo over Terence. I always thought Terence was technically better, and he looks better. Inoue, when I look at him, I've had Inoue in my top 3 for a long time now as well. I remember the first time I saw him fight. Sub of my regulator, call him the moderator. He showed me him. I watched it, made a video about him, and I said, this dude looked great from way back then. And lo and behold, the second 2-time undisputed champion in 2 different weight classes. So my eye did not lie. It told me the truth in what I saw, and I see an amazing fighter. But we have to go off of this year alone. And this year alone, I have to ask myself, is Fulton as good as Earl Spence Jr.? And I would say no. Is Tapales as good as Earl Spence Jr.? And I would say no. So it comes down to this. Do you give more credit to the guy who became a 2-time undisputed champion first more credit? Do you give a guy who only beat 1 guy, but that quality of opposition was much tougher, much better than a guy who beat 2 guys? That's what you have to come down to. Is 2 greater than 1? Is, I would say, is quantity better than quality, or is quality better than quantity? And I would say, in my honest opinion, it could go either way. This year, this is the first time I would ever propose this, but I would not be mad if both guys won Fighter of the Year. I know they don't do that, but I think this is so tight, so close, that both fighters deserve it. And if I have my 2 cents, if I can make the pick, I would make them both. Because I don't believe one deserves it over the other. But if I had to pick, push comes to shove, I would give it to Terence Crawford just because, and I know you can only go off of this year, like I said earlier, but when I just think of how long he's remained at the top, how long he's remained dominant, and the way that he stopped Earl Spence Jr., who many people believed that Terence was going to lose. It was a 50-50 fight, but it wasn't a 50-50 fight when they got in the ring. When Inoue fought Fulton, there was a lot of people who believed Fulton could win, but there was a lot more people, in my opinion, that thought Inoue was going to beat him. And when he got in there with Tapales, mostly everybody thought Inoue was just going to beat him. I didn't think it was going to be an easy fight, but I had a feeling. And I picked Inoue to win, and he did. I actually picked him to stop him, which he did as well. But I digress. Back to the point. I personally believe they both should get it. But again, push comes to shove, I got to give it to Terence Crawford because of the opponent that he beat. I believe becoming 2-time undisputed first outweighs doing it second behind you. And I also believe quality over quantity. Not to say that Tapales and Fulton aren't good fighters, because they are, but they're not Earl Spence Jr. So because, again, and I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse, getting repetitive, going in circles, we're going to end it right here with me saying this one more time to sum it all up. Because Terence Crawford became two-time undisputed fight, undisputed twice. Goodness, I'm getting tongue-tied talking so long. Because Terence Crawford became undisputed twice, we don't edit. And because of the quality of opposition in Earl Spence Jr., I give it to Terence Crawford. But again, I wish they both could win it. Let me know who you pick in the comment section below. I'm sorry, guys. I'm running on fumes. Got tongue-tied. I'm tired. I'm about to go to bed. I'm talking too much. Y'all have a good night. Oh, yeah, and to all my new subs, thank y'all for joining. I'm trying my best to comment to everybody, but it's hard. But I'll get to y'all. I do it to every single person who types to me.